As I lay in bed, my eyes fixed on the old grandfather clock that stood tall and proud against one wall. Its intricate carvings of leaves and vines seemed to dance in the fading light of day. My grandmother had given it to me before she passed away, telling me stories of how our family's ancestors used to wind its springs every Sunday morning. I wound the spring myself this evening, feeling a sense of nostalgia wash over me as I listened to the soft tick-tock echoing through my room. But tonight was different, something felt off. As I settled into bed, I noticed that time seemed to be moving at an odd pace, each tick sounded like it took twice as long as usual. Suddenly, I heard a faint whisper in my ear, "Don't look now." My heart skipped a beat as I turned away from the clock and tried to shake off the feeling of unease. But when I glanced back over my shoulder, I saw that the hands had stopped at exactly 11:47 p.m., an hour earlier than they should have been. I lay there in terror, frozen by fear, as the room seemed to darken around me. The clock's silence was deafening, it felt like time itself was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen next. And then, I heard my own voice whisper back, "It stopped at 11:47 p.m. My mind reeled in horror as I realized that the watch had indeed stopped, but not because of a mechanical failure or human error, it had simply decided to stop time itself, trapping me forever in this perpetual limbo. The last thing I remembered was my own voice whispering back, "I'm still here, waiting." Before everything went black. The old grandfather clock stood tall in the foyer of our family home. Its wooden face gleamed with intricate carvings and its chimes echoed through the halls every hour on the hour. But one day, something strange happened. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake off the feeling that time was passing differently for me than it was for everyone else. It wasn't until I heard my mother's voice calling out to me from downstairs that I realized what had occurred. Our grandfather clock had stopped at 11:47 p.m. and refused to move forward. At first, we thought it might be a simple mechanical issue, but as the hours ticked by with no change in time, panic began to set in. We tried everything to get the clock moving again, from oiling its gears to checking for any blockages, but nothing seemed to work. As night fell and our world froze at 11:47 p.m., I couldn't help but wonder what would happen if we stayed there forever. As the days turned into weeks, my family grew increasingly unhinged. My parents argued over trivial things, like whose turn it was to do the dishes or who had left their dirty socks on the floor. The world outside our home seemed frozen in time as well. News of wars and natural disasters continued to unfold without any change. It became clear that we were trapped in a never-ending loop, stuck at 11:47 p.m. forever. And I was left with only my thoughts to keep me company, wondering what the future held for us if our grandfather clock refused to move forward again. As I lay in bed, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was watching me. It wasn't until I heard my mother's voice whispering good night from downstairs that I felt a sense of relief wash over me. But as I drifted off to sleep, I became aware of an unusual sensation. The clock on my bedside table seemed to be ticking away at its own pace. At first, it was just a slight delay between each tick. A fraction of a second longer than usual. But with each passing minute, the gap grew wider and wider until it felt like time itself had come to a standstill. I tried to convince myself that my imagination was playing tricks on me, but as I watched the clock's hands move in slow motion, I realized that something more sinister was at play. As I lay there frozen in terror, I began to notice strange things happening around me. Shadows cast by the moonlight seemed to twist and writhe like living serpents. The air grew colder, heavy with an unseen presence that watched my every move. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, everything stopped moving again. The clock's hands froze at 11:47 p.m., stuck in a perpetual state of stasis. I was trapped in this limbo, unable to escape the crushing weight of time itself. As I lay there, paralyzed with fear, I realized that some things are better left unwatched and that sometimes, it's not what you see but rather what you don't see that can be truly terrifying. The darkness closed in around me, and I was consumed by an eternal silence.